All right, everybody, it's time to roll the wind. Practice like you play like you practice. Let's go roll. So tell me, why Memo?
You got time in the recording for
I
me?
got them.
Okay. Well, I was attending a course with with a dice coach, and it was actually over a July 4th weekend, and we had all split up to we were going to meet up at the Venetian, and I got there late because I had some family obligations that I was doing, and I came in looking for the group, and only one guy left, and he was leaving, and he said, "Well, the session hadn't turned out too good," and everybody had left. So there I was at the Venetian, and stick left was open. Well, stick right at the time. Stick right won. So I bought in, and at that particular time, I was a $12 better. I was kind of learning a lot, but I was still in the early stages, and betting $12 at a time on the 6 and 8, maybe work out to the inside. Anyway, I just caught onto a hand, and it just kind of went on and on. And at the Venetian at that time, there were some pretty heavy hitters that were betting. So there were people betting all over the table. Things were going on, and I think I was still doing a lot of betting at the time. I mean, that was pretty early in my career, and this hand went on, and pretty soon started getting a little bit of interest around the table. Some suit shows up, another guy shows up. Things are going on, and there's people betting, $500 chips next to me. A couple of guys from Far Eastern. One guy placed a bet, he'd step out, another guy come in and he placed a bet, in between. So they were trading out. The table got full, and it got full, and it got full, and kept going, and the hand kept going, and it just kept going. Pretty soon there was a guy. We had a box man, and there was a gentleman stood next to him in a suit, and he was about as thick as a brick. He had a neck that was probably about 20 inches around, barrel chested, and he's standing there with his hands clasped in front of him, staring at me. And, I was just playing the game, didn't really know what heat was at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd smile at him and say, "How are you doing?" And he just glare back at me, and I just kept shooting the dice. And the dice just kept doing what I wanted them to do. It was just one of those times. Uh, Pretty soon, another guy comes down, and he's got some South African accent, and he's cracking jokes all around. And you could tell he was kind of a big monkey muck, but he was dressed informally, and he'd look at me and he'd crack some joke, and he'd do something, and he'd look at me and carry on and make some kind of a comment. And this went on for quite some time. Finally, the stick came back after an hour lunch, and he says, Memo, you still shooting? And I just looked at him. I said, "Oh yeah, kind of am. Here I am." And I just kept shooting the dice, and pretty soon the hand ended, right? And I was kind of shook up. This was early in my career. I started kind of shaking. My hands were shaking, and I was a little bit sweaty handed. Well, the table was making no noise at all. There wasn't a sound could be heard at the table.
Huh.
And as I sat there, as I stood there, and I was sorting my chips, all of a sudden the dice, I noticed, a murmur, and the dice kept coming. Next thing I know, the dice are sitting right in front of me again. Yeah. I looked at the box man and I said, "What's going on?" And he says, "Well, Memo, it looks like they want you to shoot the dice again." I said, "Well, okay, I'll do that." So picking up the dice, by this time I was getting a little bit tunnel vision. And I think I tossed another 25 times. It was a little
Wow.
shorter. Yeah, it was a shorter hand. I tossed about 25 times. And, it was funny because the first time around, nobody made a noise. The second time around, every time throw the dice, the whole table would scream and yell and carry on and what have you. They weren't saying a thing. They didn't want to attract any attention.
Right.
The second time I ended my hand, the dice made it all the way to stick right here before I told the boxman, make them stop, make them stop. I don't want to shoot, you know. So they stopped the dice over here, stick right. And I'll be darned if the next guy didn't catch a pretty good hand. The guy after that got a pretty good hand. And I decided I was going to cut her up and leave. And that was what I didn't fail to tell you was I was trying to make a point. It was a real big point, a real crucial point. The table was very quiet. And the guy that was wisecracking all the time and making remarks and trying to get me off my game, I was trying to set the dice and I was having trouble doing it. And I just couldn't get him set. Usually I'm pretty fast, but I just could not get the dice set. And he goes, well, hadn't anybody, the memo's out. Had anybody give you the memo? The memo's out. The dice are out. Have you read the memo? The dice are out. Excuse me, I'll get it right. And so I picked up the dice and tossed them, and I made my point. That's when the table just kind of just went and made a whole bunch of noise. And I looked at him and I said, I got your damn memo. In all fairness, the guy looked at me and he smiled, he shook his head and he walked away, The next day I went to class to see Bo and I was telling him the story that went on. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and join the forum that you're talking about all the time. And I'm going to call myself Memo. And so I've been Memo ever since. I did get the memo. You never forget those things. When they happen, you never forget them. The interesting thing was that Bo and a couple of the other students and one of the other guys that was teaching the course had actually just gone to the bar. They weren't more than 50 yards away from me the whole time. I had no idea they were there, The boy was a great hand. I had a lot of fun, and I'll never forget it. And I didn't make any money at all because I didn't know how to bet it. I think I made about $1,600. But I was so excited, I just, couldn't get off the seat. Well, I was back in the early days, so that had to be 2004, 6, somewhere in there. Somewhere in that time, yeah, like that was going on. Yeah, with both. This might have been. I'd done several at that time. I was still, like I said, pretty new at the game. Wasn't coming out to play very often. But I had a practice rig at that time, and I'd practice back home and come out, and I'd see Bo. And this happened to be a course that he was putting on there at his house at the time. Well, I really did. I think I was pretty fortunate. I went to the first GAC, met a lot of people. That was about the time that I met Heavy for the first time, and he was connected and Bo was connected. Everybody was doing things at the GAC, and I met him the first time there at that. And that was when I met Irish Setter, Mad Dog, Soft Touch, Debbie Soft Touch was there, Michael Vernon. There were a lot of people like that at the time that were around, and it was a lot of fun meeting those people. Shooting with them at the tables and watching how they do it, learning from them all the time. Yeah, I was at the table with Mad Dog one time, and this is at the cannery, and he got into one of his hands. I'll tell you what, that guy could really shoot the dice. And he'd get out over the table and he'd lay the dice right down next to the back wall. And he got on a big hand. In fact, I thought I was going to miss my flight, It was my last day. I learned to stay over a little bit longer after that. But it was worth hanging out for his hand and watching he had a lot of class. I had a lot of class at the table, and he was real soft spoken, real quiet guy, a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't know what he's doing or what happened to him or where he's at or anything. Nobody that I talk to really knows for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard rumors, but that's just rumors. I have no idea.
Rumors are rumors, right? And some of them are true.
Yeah. That's all
probably.
that is. That's all that is.
Yeah, yeah,
He was a good guy. Irish setter. I learned a lot about intensity from that guy. Well, I'll tell you what, you never saw anybody who was intense. He really, really put everything into it when he'd shoot the dice. You know,
yeah.
you saw a guy really, really go for it. So
I never got to meet either one of those, so you're fortunate that you did.
yeah, yeah. Well, they were good to good to learn from. Of
Oh
course, I
yeah,
had low, had heavy, had a lot of
yeah.
people like that around at the time. So
Who do you feel like? I mean, you've got a good reputation as a great player and a good shooter. I've played with you a few times, but who do you feel like it helped? Who all was really instrumental in developing your game and your style?
that is, I've given a lot of thought to that. That's pretty tough. I tend to be kind of a copycat. I get a little bit from this person, a little bit from that person,
Mhm.
and I kind of ingrain it. Listen, I even got a lot from the Mad Professor. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah,
I used to read all his stuff, and he did a lot of things. Controversy about the guy, but I'll tell you what, he wrote some stuff that pretty pretty bedrock stuff now that we use. As far as some of the things that he did right. So I got a little bit from all those guys. Bo was the first guy to teach me how to place bet, for crying out loud. Uh, he's the first guy that showed me how to grip the dice.
right,
And wordplay, and got me involved in actual setting. When I first met Bo, I thought I would just go into a class to learn about playing craps. Well, I
right.
got more than that, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. You got
And
past that playing part and got into the shooting part real quick.
yeah, yeah, I got into that. That really got me excited, when I found out about that. Um, Being around people like Bo, and then like I said, Heavy. My gosh, I've
Yeah,
taken so many of his classes and done so much stuff with him. I can almost recite. When he's going through his slides, I can tell what the next slide's coming up. And I'll tell you what, it was still valuable, still good to learn every time. And he always puts a little bit more flavor into it, and
yeah,
gives you a little bit more detail and just keep building on it. The thing I got from Heavy, though, the strongest thing I ever got from him is I've never seen anybody. I've seen a lot of people at the table now. I've never seen anybody that has better table awareness than
yeah.
Heavy.
You're
He can
right.
read table, he can read shooters, he can see what's going on and size up things. And I try to emulate him, and I fail. You know,
We
but I
all
got,
do.
oh, geez, but boy, do I try. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I think he invented it. You know, I don't. He just sees them, and he sees it quick. Um, and then you combine that with his betting acumen. Well, he's always got a way to advance his bets or bring them back down, depending on what's going on with the table. He just got a lot of he's got a lot of tricks to play. Well, not only that, he notices which numbers are hitting, and he plays them. You know, and take down the ones that aren't hitting, which is just amazing to me. You know how well he can do that. If I remember right, that's the night you went over to Cromwell or Flamingo and had a bang up big hand.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and they had uh, they had one, by the stick man, and they had one at stick left one, and then some drunk had broke the other one and
I
fallen
remember that.
into it. So there was a bigger gap right there, and I would get in. I got in that big gap
Yeah,
between. So it's basically, and they wouldn't let nobody else in that spot because of COVID. And yeah, I think that was our last night, and I was debating. I remember debating: do I just want to stay up and do an all nighter and catch my flight, or do I want to go get about 4 hours sleep? Because, and I ended up deciding to cash out because I had I was looking at that picture the other day, or maybe early this afternoon. It was $8,500 I colored up on that table.
that was a nice walk back to the room.
Yeah, it was, but I had to cross the road because I had. Let's see. Yeah, because I was at the Cromwell and I had to get back to the parish. So yeah, I was a little bit nervous. You got to be careful out there sometimes.
That was good.
What's some of your other? I know you talked about your favorite. That one you didn't. You'll never forget that. You've got others you'll never forget. What are some of those times and places where you either you watched a great hand by one of the original folks, or you were on the table, or you threw it? What are some of those?
One of was, well, there's a couple come to mind. There was a couple come to mind.
All
Uh,
right.
we had a big group, and we went over to the Cromwell, and there was a guy straight out left, and another guy next to him, kind of the center part left. And this guy was getting $50,000 markers about every 20 minutes. Okay. And the guy next to him was getting smaller markers. I think they were 30, sometimes $40,000 markers. And they were playing together. They didn't really know each other. Turns out one guy was playing in some poker tournaments, and so he was a poker player, and he only played the odds. This is when they had 100-time odds. He put some ungodly amount down with, he'd end up with the numbers escape me right now, but he'd have $5,000 between his odds and his pass line, and then he continuous gum bets same way. So he'd get them up and across, and here we all were. We took over the rest of the table, and once you know, it was one of those times we couldn't get anything going. See, and we had a pretty good group going there. And this guy would he'd load it up, and we would 7 out. And he'd load it up, and we would 7 out. I mean, and he'd get another 30 or 40,000 marker, and he'd load them up, and he'd 7 out. And the other guy was getting his $50,000 markers, and I know he went through $150,000 while we were there. Well, anyway, the poker player had to go. He had to go, so he left. He probably went through $80,000 to $100,000. The guy at the end finally took his last marker, cashed out, and left. And when you know it, and I'm trying to remember the name of the shooter, just breaks one loose. I think it was about 50 rolled. If those guys would have stayed, and if they'd have continued playing, they'd have cleaned that whole thing out. Oh yeah, because they were betting pretty big. So, but I mean, it was a great hand. He just kept repeating numbers and repeating numbers. He finally made the ATS, what have you, and repeating numbers over and over again. It was great. So that was one. And then probably one of my favorite ones is I got to tell the gargoyle story.
Well, you do.
I got to tell the gargoyle story.
I need to find my pictures in. Hang on a minute. I got some pictures on that thing. Let's see what I can come up with.
We were doing another course out at Bo's. This is when Heavy and Bo were still doing courses together, and there was quite a group of us. And we went once again to the Cromwell, and by golly, it was the same table too. That one up front next to where people go down to that club, the Dreas, that late night club. Well, we were there early morning because we wanted to go play before the course was going on. So we went over there, and long story short, I'm just going to cut right to the, spoiler alert, but Gargoyle made a 6-point fire bet. Okay. So you can imagine it was a pretty good. There he is. See that right there, right up. Well, there weren't many people. That's
All right. So I know a little bit of this story from somebody like Aloha Johnny. In fact, he's the one that alerted me to it because they were all at Bo's house or Craps Pit or somewhere, and you were texting them these events. So just go ahead and tell the story. From what I heard, he was kind of like humping his leg a little bit.
me down there, and he would hop a number, and Gargoyle would throw it, and it just made it. I just made him just. And I'm not talking about once in a while. It was happening frequently, and he'd run over in there and just grab poor Gargoyle. I don't know how he ever kept his composure. Can you imagine? You throw the dice, somebody come up and do that to you, and then you're going to throw the dice again. I mean, set another point, threw about another 10.
Yeah, you see the 6 points.
Well, it was good. It was one of those things that I just happened to be there. That is if he'd have come back, if I hadn't been there, if he'd have come back telling stories, everybody gone, yeah, right, okay. Man, I not only verified it, I took pictures of it, So when he didn't have any pressure, you can only imagine. He has a exact routine. I could almost describe it. That he goes through when he shoots the dice. He does it every time. Dice at the same place on the table. He gets consistent. They kiss the back wall and they just drop, and does well. So
that's a shot we need to emulate a little bit.
Yeah.
Mine come back too far from the wall a lot. I get too overzealous. I get too much adrenaline pumping sometimes.
Well, there you go. I think that's a common malady.
Yeah.
I suffer from that one myself.
All right. So you sent me a bunch of pictures earlier, and I'm going to try to scroll through those a little bit. I'm not sure if they're in any kind of really great order or not, but let me go to some of this. Obviously, like right now, I'm going to be editing this out. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was just cherry picking.
You what?
I was just cherry picking. So
no, that's good.
Go through the.
Here's one. Did you see it?
Yeah. So that was when Bo was still his craps pit was in his.
Let me see what else I can pull up. This was the after. We're sitting there cracking up, retelling the story over and over and over. Right? That was a great little event. Now we were playing. If I'm not mistaken, we were at
we're at Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. That's right.
Yep.
It's an important part of the story because we were eating there at Fridays because we couldn't get in at Ping Pang Pongs or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we were all starving. Me and you and Bud Phelan.
Yeah.
Went to eat there. But
I think there were 6 or 8 of us, weren't there?
There might have been. I don't know. I just remember. You talk about things you're never going to forget. You and I, neither one are ever going to forget that, right?
No.
Because I call it what?
No, we're never going to forget it because you won't let me forget it.
It's the Memo press. So just so everybody will know, Memo and I, we were really enthused with this new press move where we were going to take, because we're on $25 tables back then, and we were going to take, and everybody who watches my videos sees me do it all the time now, but 25 to 42, collect, go to 90, collect, go to 180, collect, drop $30, go to 420, right?
Yeah.
And you and I are standing side by side, and we're both trying to remember how that progression went. And I don't even remember who was throwing the dice. Do you?
It was at the dice were on the other end of the table.
Yeah, it could have been Aloha Johnny. It could have been Nate. It could have been Banker Dude. I don't know who it was.
It was one of our group.
Yeah, because they were hammering sixes or eights, one of the two. And you and I are sitting there going, okay, I'm going to start laughing telling this story. we're sitting there and we're trying to remember, and we're like, okay, we go to 90, we go to 180, and we're supposed to drop 30, and we both have kind of picked up $30, and we got it in our hand because we're like 3 or 4 tosses ahead.
We're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to 420 come hell or high water. By God, we're going to 420. And we only had 90. We had just collected on the 90, right?
Yeah.
And another 6 rolled, and you dropped $30 out there on that thing and said, take me to 420. And I thought that dealer was going to place it. And I almost dropped mine down there too. I said, if he's going to get because they got brand new dealers down there. And I was like, if he's going to get that 420 from there, I'm going to get it too. I was about to drop mine down, but the box man stopped him from placing the bet.
I think if it hadn't been for the box man, I'd have actually made my press. I don't know.
I think you would have, and I might have joined you because I was ready. I had mine sitting there ready to go too. I was going if they was giving it to you, I was going in because I had done got so confused. I didn't know where we were at, and I think that was your problem. We were sitting there going over that press so much in our minds and talking back and forth about how to do it, and then it hit. We're just ready to go. So we're going to go from 90 to 420 with a $30 drop.
Well, we haven't been able to get up there all day, and it's
no,
like,
it never did.
This is the one. We're going to do it.
Yeah. So have you been able to do it since?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's like it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
no problem now, but it's amazing.
We were in Biloxi the first time we were on. You don't ever get to go to Biloxi, do you?
Not too often. It's kind of hard for me to get there.
Yeah.
Compared to Vegas.
Oh yeah, for you compared to Vegas.
Yeah.
They had a tub that was, I think it was a 6-foot tub at Harrah's.
Yeah.
And it was really, really bouncy. And me and one of the other students from back in the day, we were sitting there, and he and I both went to 420, and we collected on that hit. And then, so I remember because that was the first time I'd ever got a hit at 420 on that thing. And it wasn't too long the guy 7'd that because we were already like you and I were, we were like, okay, next move's 900.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't get the hit. So I kind of decided after that, at that point, it'd be smart to regress after you get that hit because it takes a lot of sixes and it takes a lot of numbers to get on up there. But I still don't regress. I have a few times if it's long in the tooth and I just don't feel like it. I don't. It's a smart move to regress from 420 down to like 180 because you put so much back in your rack plus the 500 you just won. It's a good move to go ahead and regress at that point if you get that hit.
It is. I was in on a hand with Banker Dude was tossing,
Oh yeah.
And I had my 6 and 8 both up to 900, and I collected on one of them. And I want to say, I had, of course, all my other numbers were way up there also. And I collected on one, so I guess I can't complain, but I've never been able to make that press from there, on that. So I think I agree with you, that's probably a good kind of regress. We want to go to the table limit. I agree with you. I think it's a smart thing to do, but by the same token, you'd never remember it as much as you would if you got that table limit.
And 220 inside, he was pounding sixes. Oh, I mean, back to back to back almost. I mean, they were coming just in rapid fire. And I never even placed a 4 and 10. And he hit several of those, but I never even bothered to even bet the 4 and 10 because I was pressing up on the inside so much. But we got to 900, and he said, "Okay, what do we do at 900?" I said, "Well, we're going to collect." And so we collected 1,050. And he said, "What do we do next?" And I said, "You know what? I'm going to collect one more time." And he rolled the next one was a 6. So we collected. Then he said, "What's next?" I said, "Then we're going to 1,800. So we went to 1,800. He hit it again. We went to 1,800, and then the sixes disappeared. And I bet he rolled 7 or 8 eights after that. And the 8s start climbing,
Right.
And I kept telling everybody, we need to get off the sixes. He's not throwing them. We need to pull down. None of it. I'm calling for it, but none of us pulled down. We left it there. But
you too.
Yeah, I stayed on it. I fully admit it. But that collecting twice at 900 cost me $2,100 or another $1,000. It cost me another $1,000 because I would have already been at 1,800 when that last one hit, and I'd have collected the 21. So,
well, it's fun to look back at that, but I mean that extra $1,000 in your rack, not a bad thing.
But it looked good. The other thing I have found out and have determined over the last couple of years, and do you do a lot of hot betting at all?
No, very little.
Okay. All right. So what I've learned is if you've got a hot number like that, where you've got it pressed up, it don't matter which one it is, and it's the come out roll, you need to hop that hot number because you do not want to waste a roll. Because I guarantee you, if you don't hop it, they're going to set that as the point, and you didn't make a dime off of it.
Yeah. The dice gods are very funny that way, aren't they?
Banker dude did that at the Beau Rivage. He had his 4 pressed to the house limit. He had $5,000 sitting on it, and his come out roll was a 4, and that was the last one. So if they had hopped that 4, by then, if you hit that many 4s, you could have hopped it for, $100 hard way and $200 easy 4, and you'd have made a fortune.
Yeah. Well, looking back, I mean, that's what the betting's all about. That's what this game is all about.
That's
is learning how to take advantage of those type of deals.
Do you need to take a break or anything for anything?
Well, I got people coming in the room. What I'm doing?
Oh, you're being a TV star today.
Yeah.
All right. So you got one of my favorite things behind you. I can see James Bond and Plenty O'Toole back there, who was named after her father. Right?
Yeah.
I see James Bond. What else you got on your wall back there?
Well, I think I got Bo.
I got Bo.
Bo, my dad. Betty Boop. Dean Martin. Somebody, that's a drawing by Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich signed that for me. which was kind of cool. He's
Yeah.
pretty good. What else have I got? Riviera hat. You're not going to find those very much.
No, you're not gonna find those.
And I got a few pictures, more of the same, kind of like what you saw with my
Yeah.
shooting with Heavy and I. You know, some things that I got up there. That was my first layout on this table. I kept wearing a hole in it, right on my landing spot. So you have to get another table top, another felt. So that was my original. I guess it has. I tend to try to avoid the crowds, and so I kind of select my crowds. Valleys, now tables, I'm having a little trouble with those tables. Yeah, have a little trouble with them. They don't look well. It's a horseshoe now, and it's the tables are different, and I don't know what it is. I'm just having trouble with them. They don't seem, they're a little bouncy, but they don't seem that bad. I play Cromwell a lot. I like Cromwell. I do. Well, I'll go see the Cert, but we saw, we'll go see a singer or somebody like that. Country western. Keith Urban was the last one that we went to see. Uh, oh my gosh, several like that. Or I'll go pick up a comedy show. Extravaganza, I think they've done away with it now. I used to really enjoy the Extravaganza. I took my staff out about a year ago, and we all went to see Extravaganza, and it's a great show. You can see it. It's all old acts, people that have been doing things for 30 years. A lady that shoots the balloons with Annie Oakley type thing, and with what have you, guy balancing dishes, and different people doing those acts, the motorcycles in the cage going around, and what have you. That's good, like that. So we'll try to see shows like that. Of course, the search shows, you gotta go and see those. They're all worth seeing. When those shows are going on Saturday night, that is your best time to be off the floor. So I find that it serves me well to go to those shows and enjoy them.
Yeah, it's probably a great idea to go to a show instead of playing craps, isn't it?
On Saturday night, about that time of night, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all
When's
shoulders.
your favorite time? When's your favorite time to play craps?
Usually early in the morning. I am finding that you can find gaps during the day. You know, craps players, people that come in waves.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out what that wave is for the day, you can kind of duck in between where the crowds are and do stuff. But usually early morning, I'll almost always do an early morning session, and mid morning, right about the time they open up some tables. I like to be there when they're going to do about mid morning, what have you. After mid afternoon, another time you can find an interlude. There just seems to be a point right in there where you can get in a session without too big of crowds.
All right. So what have I forgot to ask you about that you'd like to talk about?
Can't think of what it is.
Oh,
Maybe a little bit about the camaraderie that goes along with
talk
this.
about it. Talk about the camaraderie.
That's one of the things that once I started getting to know people, I mean, good God, it's amazing the friends that you make. And you meet up, you might not see somebody for a couple of years, and it's like, oh my God, there you are. Here, let's go shoot and go do some stuff. I get a big kick out of hooking up with Howard when he's got his posse with him. Well, you talk about a bunch of crazy misfits. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That whole group. I mean, they're all just nuts, and they're fun. God, they're fun. You never know especially you never know what Boris is going to say. But they go and they have Coy. Coy's quiet, but they're all a bunch of nice people, but they're cut ups and they're out there having a good time. It's I've met friends from all over the place, and you do, and then you start swapping memories. That's fun. Sitting there
Yeah.
talking about things you've been doing,
Yeah.
and find out about how they're doing and what have you. It's a lot of fun getting to know people. So the camaraderie in this game, it's not a degenerate game. It could be,
Yeah.
but the people that tend to do what we do are keeping their wits about them, and they're not there to go crazy and whoop it up in Las Vegas. They're there to seriously play the game, and
Yeah.
so we bond for that,
Yeah.
and the ones that stick around are the ones that bond the most because those are the ones that you really get into what it is that we're doing.
Right.
And that's a great thing, and made so many friends. Looking back, wouldn't give it up. It was worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I count you. I may have only met you once, but I
No,
felt like
we've been to a couple of deals
two of
together.
them. Okay.
Yeah. Been a couple of them.
Yeah. There's been a couple.
You
We had a great time, and I'm a serious player. You're a serious player, and I think serious players love to hang out with serious players, right?
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
Where they're to me, it's a hobby, just like any other hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But you're there to do the best you can do, and try to beat that casino at your hobby.
that's right. That's right.
I mean,
The odds are against you.
yeah. Can I overcome those odds? That's the challenge.
There you are.
Can I overcome the odds that are stacked against me?
Yeah.
I think that's what makes me go.
I'm not going to make a living at this.
No.
I'm not fooling myself. Go
It was
out.
either Irish or Mad Dog said it's a hard way to make an easy living. I can't remember which one, but
I can't place who said that either.
but I've heard it over and over and over, and I've adopted it as truth because it would be a hard way to make a living. You'd have to extreme discipline.
I don't know if that attracts me very much. I don't know if that's something I'd want to be.
Yeah.
Because there's enough gamble in me that I don't know if I want to exercise that much.
You want that? You're like me. You want that $900 six.
That's right. I want that. I want to hit the table limit on the 410, and I want to bang it a couple times and be able to think about that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I want to have the table pass me the dice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear guys all the time complaining because somebody gives them a $25 chip when they go a good hand. It's like, God, they ought to. Well, you know what? If you've had a good hand, you've made enough money, that $25 or $100, you're expecting somebody to give you a tip. I don't even know why. It doesn't mean anything. But when the table just passes, the whole group of strangers, 50 people, they all say, pass the dice, pass the dice. They come around. You know what? That give you a big head. And when that happens, that means a lot. So those are the rare moments that, seeing Gargoyle get humped by some guy, and 6-point fire, things of that nature. It makes it worthwhile. It's a lot of fun. That's where the stuff is. I've done courses with them, and we've been out and played and done stuff at the same tables. 3 or 4. And you get that energy going. I don't care what you say. There's just something in that. Call it what you want, but you don't see very many tables with low energy do very well. With the sparks. Although a hot hand will bring a lot of energy into it.
You pick up somebody hits the tall, or hits the all rather. You pick up that big old $1 white chip, and you go, "Hey, shooter, here's something for your trouble." and just throw him a dollar. Johnny wants to collect dollars. He wants to collect dollars. He wants to be the first one to collect every time.
Well, I'll throw him a dollar every time.
Yeah.
If-
Oh, I said, I'll go buy extra dollars if you keep hitting that ATS, buddy.
It'd be worth it to me. Yeah, it'd be worth it to me.
I even offered to autograph one for him. He said, I don't want your autograph. I just want your dollar. So,
Well, there he
all
is.
right.